Say we're joined now by John O'Mahony, who of course has plenty of inter-county experience. John, how are you this morning?
Good, Shane. Yeah, looking forward to a big weekend of football knockouts, which will bring a new dynamic to the whole scene this weekend. So it'll be there's some tasty fixtures ahead.
Yeah, and I mean I presume you expected Galway versus Mayo to come out of the draw. Everyone was thinking, of course, it's going to come out.
Yeah, I mean, once Sunday evening, I was exhausted by 6 o'clock Sunday evening, watching all the various games and the way that I suppose teams collapsed that were expected to win. You know, especially I suppose in Mayo's case, they were 6 points ahead. I was watching it on GA Go. I couldn't be there, but when I saw them 6 points ahead, I said, "That's done." I went in to watch in another room, watch Roscommon and Kildare, because that was a tasty encounter, and came out 6 or 7 minutes later just to have a look that everything was okay, and the whole house had fallen in. So you know, I suppose overall, when you look at it, the teams that were playing for their lives last weekend, Armagh, Donegal, Kildare and Westmeath, sometimes character is shown when your back is to the wall, and you know the other teams played with those teams under pressure played with gay abandon. It was a knockout for them, I suppose, last Sunday, and that kind of gives us an indication of what this week is going to look like. But I mean, I'm over the years I have been a big believer in you can have all the tactics, the fitness, the talent you want, but if you haven't your mental attitude right, you'll get caught. And that's what happened Roscommon, that's what happened Mayo, that's what happened Galway, and that's what happened Monaghan probably on Saturday evening last as well. And now are we into a situation this weekend where, you know, maybe Cork, Kildare, Donegal will think that they have it all, and the other team that played poorly last week as well, will they think that they have it all solved? And will there be a flip in the mental attitude? So will Roscommon go down with their backs to the wall to Cork, for instance, and maybe turn them over because Cork think they have it all solved? And same with maybe Kildare. So it is an intriguing week, but I think the mental attitude of teams this weekend and throwing in the dynamic of the knockout is going to be absolutely everyone bearing their souls, because, you know, there wasn't as much by the teams that were playing for their lives last week. There wasn't as much, you know, slow process and passing across the field. They were throwing the kitchen sink at it, and it benefited the watching of it to an extent in all those games where the upsets took place.
Yeah, Jason, just to bring you back in then, the drama was unbelievable. Like John Heslin had a last minute free, Shane Walsh had a last minute free, Aidan O'Shea dropped the ball in. If you put it over the bar, they would have finished second and had a home draw. Kevin Feely, of course, had that last minute mark and put it over the bar. Like, this was sort of last day of the Premier League type drama, and we'll probably get more of the same this weekend.
Yeah, definitely, Shane. I was in Carrick-on-Shannon, and it was gas. Like, Colin Boyle and Curtis Staunton were both there on media duties, and they were running over the laptop, seeing what was happening in the Mayo game and kind of panicking, and it was mad. Like it turned out all four Connacht teams were beaten, and, you know, if you'd have said that to someone on Sunday morning, they would have said you were daft. Like, and just the whole the results that came in were just so against the head. Like, and you know, I was at the Galway Armagh game, and even though there was only 6 and a bit thousand there, and they were looking to move the game to Croke Park, like the way Carrick is, like, I don't need to remind Jono, like, it's just this tight wee ground, like, and it felt like there was so many more people there, like, and, you know, when Shane Walsh missed the free at the end, and it was such, you could tell how much it meant to Armagh, like, you know, they were just, the celebrations at the end were just remarkable, like, because out of nowhere they topped the group, and Mayo will be really kicking themselves, because I think themselves and Derry were the only team going into the weekend that had 2 victories under their belts, and just finishing top was totally in their own hands. And that result was probably the biggest shock of the weekend for me, that Cork turned them over. And as Jono said, like, if you don't have your mindset right, it can definitely cost you. Like, so it's gas. Like, we were talking about Galway and Mayo as All-Ireland contenders, and now one of them is going to be gone this weekend. Like, it's going to be I can't wait to go to Salthill on Sunday. I presume you'll be there as well, John. The place is going to be heaving, and it's so hard.
It is. I think there's someone says this morning that there's 20,000 tickets sold already, so it will be a sellout. There's no doubt about that. It's very intriguing because here you have a kind of a different mix. You have two teams who didn't perform last week. You have Galway, who got caught because they had a safety net because everyone expected Westmeath to be beaten by Tyrone, and that even if Galway had lost to Armagh and Tyrone had won, then Galway would have still topped the group because on the head-to-head with Tyrone they'd be there. So I mean the safety net and probably they probably took Armagh because they had beaten them last year, and also that Rian O'Neill was injured, and all of that they took it a little. And up to now, really, Galway had been doing their business quietly, beating Tyrone and putting Westmeath away eventually without being spectacular. But it absolutely, as I said, I think the fact that Armagh were playing for their life, there was a different attitude. You could see it on the field. And it's incredible because Armagh have been underperforming all year in many respects and didn't shut out games at the end and so on. So they were a different animal the last day, whereas Galway showed something, I suppose, frailties that they hadn't shown all year. They just didn't get the business done. And Shane Walsh, you'd have put your house on him maybe to get the equaliser, which would have been enough. But because I know it was out on the wing, but when we saw what he could do last year in the All-Ireland final, you'd have backed him to do it, but it didn't happen, and now they find themselves. I mean, in many respects, people in Connacht, Mayo, and Galway were saying, "Well, God, Mayo and Galway could meet in All-Ireland semi-final or final or whatever." Well, that certainly went out the window, and now it's death for one team, and even the team that wins, be that whether that's Galway or Mayo, they face an incredible. They have Dublin, Kerry, Derry, or Armagh, and where Armagh are sitting pretty. I mean, the odds you'd have got on Armagh to top the group last Sunday morning, I presume you'd have got about 100 to 1. So I suppose it adds to the drama. It adds to the drama of the championship, definitely. But it also brings up this thing about, whether things are decided on head-to-head or scoring difference, because Galway had a superior scoring difference to Armagh and so on. So there's a lot to be talked about but I suppose that's for later about the system. But it certainly is intriguing, and I'm looking forward to this. Shootout at OK Corral on Sunday, because obviously being from Mayo, can they recover? Their collapse was probably bigger than Galway's, so can they recover, or can Galway? They have the injury thing hanging over them with Dylan McHugh and Damien Comer and Sean Kelly, who look, if you were to judge on the visuals last Sunday, it looks like he'll find it difficult to make it, but I have no idea. Sometimes miracles can be worked when your back are to the wall.
Yeah, and Billy Joe Padden said in the Mayo News, "It's been a long time since I was so annoyed by watching Mayo. Considering where we're at in the season, I thought the display against Cork was absolutely atrocious from start to finish." Jason, it's going to be a tough week for Kevin McStay, as it will for Pádraig Joyce, because Galway lacked that bit of composure. You don't want to throw too much at the feet of Shane Walsh. But, it was surprising to see him miss a penalty. It was surprising to see him put that late shot so far wide. A couple of other players, the likes of Peter Cook, had wild shots that, didn't even go wide late on in the game. So both teams lacked that bit of composure.
Yeah, definitely. And just Shane looked way off colour. I don't know, is he tired or is he just mentally taxed from the year he had with, going so long with Kilmacud Crooks and all the saga with the transfer last year and everything? I'm sure it had a big impact on him. I know he took a bit of a break, but he just doesn't look like he's at the level where he was at last year. If they're missing Damien Comer on Sunday, it's such a massive blow, as Jono said. He's got a hamstring injury. Dylan McHugh's got a hamstring injury. Sean Kelly left Park Sean in a protective boot for his ankle, and he was using crutches. Now, as John said, we don't know the extent of the damage, but there'll be the rosary beads will be out to make sure he's on the field, because he was absolutely outstanding on Sunday. His runs from deep in terms of breaking the lines and making things happen. He got another brilliant goal. He got a great goal against Mayo in the league earlier this year as well. And this is the game that didn't happen in the Connacht Championship that everyone thought would happen. And those injuries are going to be vital for Galway, and for Mayo as well. Killian O'Connor was playing with his club last weekend. We've been told all summer he's kind of on the way back, so it'll be interesting to see if he features in the 26, just to give them that extra bit as well. Matthew Tierney's been outstanding for Galway, in fairness. I thought he was great again last weekend. Cook had a great first half before they started taking those kind of wild shots and things like that as well. John Maher's been a real find at midfield as well, I think, for Galway. I think he's been absolutely exceptional, and they still have a few of the lads still playing from last year as well, like Killian McDaid, and having Ian Burke's been massive. But I was surprised he was left on the field for so long on Sunday as well, because his impact definitely wasn't what he would have hoped. So it's going to be, both teams need the big statements this weekend, and it's do or die. And it's mad when you look at the stats, for all the times they played each other in the championship, it's so even. And Jono would have been involved in so many of those games as well. I think from all the times they've met, I think Mayo have won 44 times and Galway have won 42, and there's been 6 draws or something. So margins are just so small between these two counties. It has to be the best rivalry in football. If you look at through the entire history of the GA, it has to be the best rivalry, because it's always just been so close.
John, do you see any areas as been particularly crucial, any matchups that one team can get an edge on?
Well, I think that if you talk about Mayo first, I think they were penetrated too easy. Like in the last few minutes, the last 15 minutes after Cork got the goal last from the penalty, the Mayo central of their defence was opened up time and time again. So, what's going to send a signal here is I'd expect that be a fair few changes in both teams from last week. In Galway's case, you had Billy Mannion, who I don't think he played many minutes since coming on making his debut for Galway against Armagh in last year's game. So I think there will be changes. The matchups will be incredible. I mean, if Damien Comer, and perhaps, he was supposed to have a tight hamstring, that's why he didn't start against Westmeath, but he came on in the last 10 or 15 minutes and he got 3 points from play, and he was decisive in everything he did. So I wonder, were they minding him last week maybe or whatever, I'm not sure. But if he plays, then, the matchups who will Mayo put to mark him, or will he be double marked or whatever, that'll be a big one. I'd expect to be changes in Galway as well, because John Maher, I know him from my club at Faltill. He has an engine that would go forever, and he has been very, very good in all the games that in the league, at the latter end of the league, and in the championship games that he's played. So, you'd expect that he'd be pushing for a place as well. So the matchups, because we don't know exactly who's going to be playing or what changes are going to be made, it's going to be difficult. But if Comer is playing the matchup there, whoever is marking, it could be club there from my own here in Balladreen, David McBrien, who has done well there. But it's you'd have to say that the whole dynamic of the game would change if Comer played, and also Aidan O'Shea has been doing very well inside this year, so he'll be a big matchup for whoever is taking him from the Galway side. If Sean Kelly is out, I know Sean Mulcairns has been injured for a year and but has played very little football. But he's a natural full back as well. So I suppose the first thing that before you can even talk about matchups, we'd have to see what kind of teams are announced. But it's definitely going to be an intriguing, as has been said there. Shane said about Shane Walsh. I mean, he looks to have been totally distracted since the highs of last year All Ireland. So he needs to focus and get his eye in. If he does, it'll be you know, a totally different game. For Mayo, I suppose the big one for Galway with as matchups with Mayo. I mean, Ryan O'Donoghue has been fantastic for Mayo over the last number of years, and you know, who'll be picking him up because he's the reason that Mayo got to probably won the league a few years ago and got to the league final and won the league this year. So there's a lot for, as you said earlier, for Kevin McStay and Porrick Joyce to be contemplating as we speak.